Tales of Arise will hit the shelves and digital stores on September 10th this year. You might have seen a trailer here or there or seen some stills and wondered, hey, this game looks sick, I wonder if it would be an interesting playthrough. But I've never played a Tales game. Hello and welcome, my name is Glitchy and welcome to Tales of a History. In this video I will talk about the Tales series, when and where it started, how the games work, what all the games share and what they don't share, and if you need to have played installments in order to enjoy the upcoming ones. I've also made timestamps in the video if you want to, skip over some stuff. Tales knows a huge number of installments. I would dare say it's even more than the Final Fantasy franchise. Tales of is separated into two sorts of titles. The mothership titles, which are the main ones so to speak, and the spin-offs or escort titles as they are called officially. I will only touch upon the flagship titles. To start off with, Tales of Fantasia was the first game in the series and was released for the Super Nintendo in 1995. It was a game that pushed the SNES to its limits and used a gameplay mechanic that was never seen before, and it's still unique to its own series. The gameplay mechanic is called the LMBS, or Linear Motion Battle System. This system is basically what defines the series and makes it unique to other JRPGs. It's a battle system where a character is tied to some sort of plane of movement where you can go forwards and backwards from the enemy in a straight line. It's reminiscent of 2D fighting games like in Street Fighter or in Fighters. You can only go back and forth to go to safety or charge in for an attack. In later games, the LMBS is always slightly altered to add something refreshing to the system. One of which is the addition of 3D moving space, where you can run around freely either on your own or by pressing a specific button to unlock yourself. From the moment you start to attack the enemy, the linear aspect is re-enabled. In any case, each game has its own take on the LMBS and evolves to something extraordinarily enjoyable. Anyway, the first game was Tales of Fantasia for the SNES in 1995, and it was remade for the PlayStation 3 years later. It was also ported to the Game Boy Advance in 2006 for both EU and America, though there is also a fully voiced edition which was also ported to the iOS in 2013, so you can play it on your phone if you wish. The second game was Tales of Destiny, which was released for the PlayStation in 1997 for Japan. A year later it was released for America as well. This did not mark a true global appreciation for the franchise yet, that happens a little later. Then in 2006, a remake was released for the PlayStation 2, but only for the Asian audience. In the year 2000, Tales of Eternia was released for the PlayStation in Japan. A year later, it was also released for American audiences, but the game received a name change and became Tales of Destiny 2. Apparently, Eternia is trademarked by Mattel for He-Man merch in America. That's why they had to make the name change. But in 2006, Tales of Eternia came to Europe as well, but in UMD for PlayStation Portable. 2 years later, in 2002, Tales of Destiny 2 came to realization on PlayStation 2.
But Glitchy, wasn't Eternia renamed to Destiny 2 as well?
Why, yes, but the actual Destiny 2 was only released for Japan, so no one else got confused unless you imported the game and have both titles sitting next to each other being completely different games. So for this title, no Western release was made. Then, with the fruition of the Nintendo GameCube, came a whole new era for Tales. In 2003, Japan received a godsend Tales of Symphonia. It was released for Western audiences in 2004, and it changed literally everything. Due to this title, Tales became globally accepted and made everyone longing for more. This was also the first title with a 3D aspect in the LMBS. In 2004, Symphonia got a PlayStation 2 release in Japan, and for the PlayStation 3 in 2013. In 2014, it was remastered for the PlayStation 3 for Western audiences, and then in 2016, it got a global release on Steam. I'm sorry this part looks so jumbled up, but this title received so many releases. In the year 2004, Japan received the 6th entry in the Tales series called Tales of Rebirth on the PlayStation 2. It did not adapt to Western release, but it did get a PSP release in 2008 for Japan only. A year later, in 2005, Tales of Legendia was released for the PlayStation 2 in Japan, and in 2006 it adopted an American release, but sadly no European release. There were no remasters for this game in later stages. If you're acquainted with the series only a little, I think Symphonia was the only one that rung a bell. I'm sure that you know the rest on the list. Tales of the Abyss, the 8th flagship title, was released in 2005 on the PlayStation 2 in Japan and 2006 in America. In 2011, it was globally released on the 3DS. Well, America got it 3 months later, so it was 2012 already. The 9th flagship title, Tales of Innocence, was sadly Japan only again, which was released for the Nintendo DS in 2007 and for the PS Vita in 2012. But the Vita release was a remake or reimagination, which gave the title a rename to Tales of Innocence R, The R stands for reimagination, as it changed things quite heavily. Tales of Vesperia is the next in line. It was released in Japan only on the Xbox 360 in 2008 and for the PS3 in 2009. This was a title that many really enjoyed and just imported from Japan. After many years, when Tales was globally praised, Bandai Namco decided to make a global release for all current gen platforms in 2019. Number 11 is Tales of Hearts, which was also released in Japan in 2008 for the DS, and after a couple years, they decided to do the same thing as they did for Innocence. Tales of Hearts R was created and released for the PS Vita in 2013 and globally in 2014. Tales of Graces hit the Wii in Japan in 2009 and again in 2010 on the PS3, but then it gets called Tales of Graces F. The F stands for Future. In 2013, the PS3 version was released for America and Europe as well. Number 13, my absolute favorite game in the series, Tales of Xillia. It was released for the PlayStation 3 in 2011 for Japan and in 2013 for America and Europe. This is the first game that uses an over-the-shoulder camera and also lets you choose your playable protagonist. Then, a year later, 2012 for Japan and 2014 globally, we received Tales of Xillia 2, still for the PlayStation 3. This one does not continue with the previous protagonist, but the other characters do make an appearance. The 15th game is Tales of Zestiria, another favorite game of mine, globally released for the PlayStation and Steam in 2015. I mean, there are a couple of months in between Japanese and Western releases though, but look at it, the 15th title in 2015, I wonder if they were striving for it. In 2016 we get our 16th game, what a coincidence! Tales of Berseria was released in Japan for PlayStation and Steam, and only 5 months later, when we arrived in 2017, it was released for the same platforms in America and Europe as well. And then we arrive at Tales of Arise, which will, for the first time ever, receive a fully global release on the same exact date on PlayStation, Xbox and Steam on September 10th, 2021. What a ride, huh? Now, you know all the release dates and so my fancy timelines for all the games, but you might be wondering, do you continue the story in each game, or is it more like the Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy series? The answer is yes, and sometimes no. Some of these games are in the same universe and share the same world or characters, but let me explain. Tales of Phantasia takes place in the world of Vesilia, or Deris Karlan, but Tales of Symphonia also takes place in Vesilia. The only difference is, it's 4,000 years prior to Phantasia. So it's not really a prequel per se, but if you play Symphonia, you might understand the world of Phantasia a bit more. Tales of Destiny and Destiny 2 are obvious sequels, but not really. You will surely notice that the events in Destiny 1 happened when you play Destiny 2, but it's 18 years later and you play as different characters. Destiny 2 also spans across multiple eras and different timelines. Tales of Eternia is its own thing and only spans across Eternia spin-off titles, and the same goes for Tales of Abyss and Vesperia. Tales of Xillia is a weird thing. Without spoiling too much, the world of Xillia is split. In Xillia 1 you play on one side, and Xillia 2 you play on the other side. But you will notice that things will coalesce at some point and you will traverse places you've seen before. It also takes place 1 year after Xillia 1. So it's kind of a sequel, but also not really. I will advise playing the first though. Tales of Innocence R and Hearts R are the same universe but different stories. Zestiria and Berseria are also in the same universe, but although Zestiria was released earlier, Berseria is 1,000 years prior to Zestiria. It's really awesome to play Berseria and recognize places you've seen in Zestiria, or vice versa. They're still completely different stories and it doesn't really matter too much in which order you play. So the answer to the outlying question, do you need to have played the previous games to enjoy Tales of Arise? No, you absolutely do not have to have played the previous games. But I do recommend playing some to get a feel for the game. Tales of Arise will absolutely feel different than any other game you should decide to play prior, but you'll understand certain aspects of the game. Every Tales game has a couple things in common. The LMBS, arts, skits, and cooking. Also the name Tales, but whatever. I already explained the LMBS before. It's the 2D fighting space in a 3D environment when looking at the later games. Arts are the attacks you can use. Like, you have your normal attacks, but arts are your special attacks, like ninjutsus for Naruto or key attacks in Dragon Ball. You can predefine your arts in the menu, where you can select the direction for your thumbstick to tilt and your attack button. For example, up and the art button will be Demon Fang, a common art for a fighter. Then you combo this attack into other arts to set to different directions. This art mechanic varies from game to game, but the core mechanic with the direction stays the same. However, in Berseria it was completely different. Your attacks consisted of 4 stages. Each of the phase buttons can be pressed at any given time when you configure any art to any combination, and it would combo in the way you press the buttons. For instance, you could set all water arts on the X since the button is blue, or fire art to circle since it's red. Yeah, I did that since I'm weird like that. But if I were to press X, circle, it would be a water art, fire art, water art, fire art. Does that make sense? With this mechanism you had so much freedom to create destructive combos for many combat opportunities. You could see it as a setup for all kinds of encounters. Looking at Tales of Arise, I'm sure it will be as unique as Berseria, but I'll dive into that in a more specific video for Arise. Skits are another common thing in Tales games. At certain points in the game, whether you just had a story cutscene or met new people, you got the opportunity to press a button. That button press would activate a skit where some or even all party members would start a conversation. It could be based on past events or it could just be humorous. This was something that happened in every single Tales game and they're always voiced and very entertaining to watch. As the games progressed, they became more and more animated and gave this manga narrative kind of feel, especially in Berseria. The last thing I mentioned that was common in almost all games was cooking. Throughout your adventure you are able to gather ingredients and cook at resting spots or right after battle. This would heal and or buff you. I said it was common in almost all games since the only game that did not have cooking was Tales of Hearts. The rest of the games all have cooking, and I'm sure that Arise will also have it. This series started 26 years ago. It's still blossoming and will become greater and greater with each new addition to the mothership titles. I hope this information in the video informed you well enough about the series history and that you're also looking forward to Tales of Arise as much as I am. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next one.
Well, let's not break out the joy loom just yet. Check this out!